Okay, are we all here? My name is Robert Reich. I was Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton. Before that, I was at Harvard. Before that, I was in the Carter administration. Do you remember, anybody remember? You don't remember the Carter administration. Before that, I was a special aide to Abraham Lincoln. Those were tough times. We are going to deal with three questions. The first question is, what is happening in terms of the distribution of income and wealth? Number two, why? Number three, is it a problem? Maybe it's not a problem. Many of you call yourselves conservatives, many of you call yourselves liberals. Those labels will become increasingly irrelevant as you get deeper and deeper into this subject. I want you to test your assumptions. If possible, I want to shake your assumptions a little bit about why the system works as it does. Some inequality is inevitable. If people are going to have the proper incentives to be productive, to work hard, to be inventive, that's the essence of capitalism, and capitalism does generate a lot of good things. Look, the question is not inequality per se. The question is, when does inequality become a problem? How much inequality can we tolerate and still have an economy that's working for everyone and still have a democracy that's functioning? Of all developed nations today, the United States has the most unequal distribution of income and wealth by far, and we're surging toward even greater inequality. One way of looking at and measuring inequality is to look at the earnings of people at the top versus the earnings of the typical worker in the middle. The typical male worker in 1978 was making around $48,000 adjusted for inflation, while the average person in the top 1% earned $390,000. Now fast forward. By 2010, the typical male worker earned even less than he did then, but the person at the top got more than twice as much as before. Today, the richest 400 Americans have more wealth than the bottom 150 million of us put together. Now think about it. 400 people have more wealth than half the population of the United States.
Anger rising over an economic system that has rewarded some but leaves many feeling left behind.
After the economy crashed in 2008, inequality suddenly became front-page news.
Who else wants to join the 1%? You look like a 1%er. We're a fabulous percent.
People from both parties were looking for someone to blame. But most people have no idea how it got this bad, or why. Not until the last few years have we really understood all that much about inequality. I mean, we knew the top 10 or 20% were moving in one direction and the bottom 10 or 20% was moving in another. But we didn't know what was happening at the very top, to the top 1%.
Hello.
How are you doing? Good to see you. And then a few years ago, two researchers, Emmanuel Sayes and Thomas Piketty, found a different source of data. They looked at IRS tax data, not just over the last few years, but all the way back to 1913, when the income tax was instituted. It showed that there were two peak years. 1928 and 2007 become the peak years for income concentration, both of them in which the top 1% is taking on more than 23% of total income.
We knew that inequality had started to increase in the late 70s and the 1980s, but we didn't know how dramatically income concentration had increased, especially within the top 1%.
So you had this study come out in 2003. It sat there for a number of years, and then suddenly it became important. This graph becomes very central for explaining what has happened to the US economy, and indeed what's happening and has happened to our society.